So a lot of times people want to know who is Mike and Carol. You think we just showed up on the scene, but no, we have been doing this for over 23 years.
Yes.
And doing it side by side together.
Together.
And we spend 98% of our time together.
Yes.
That's waking up to going to bed, 98%. Now, everyone can't do that.
Everyone can't do it, and we enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
You know, we've been doing it so long, we enjoy doing it. It's a joy.
Yeah, and so there is a reason behind and the methodology and everything that helps us to be who we are. So let's talk about 3 things that people do not know, or a lot of people don't know about Mike and Carol. So we're going to give you 3 nuggets, 3 like inside things that a lot of people don't know about us.
Yeah, so let's share our story.
Let's share our story. So the first thing is both of us have been married to other people before we became married to each other. Now, we've been married together for 27 years,
Yes.
together 29 years, but prior to that, we both have been married. Now, we're both in our 60s now, mid-60s.
Yes.
A lot of experience back here. So we're both in our mid-60s, but in our early years, we both was married.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We were. And, you know, I found, just to share a little of my story, I found that my marriage didn't serve me because for all the wrong reasons, I picked the wrong person.
Yeah.
I picked that person, you know, based upon lust as opposed to love. And there is a big difference.
It is.
And when you choose a person based upon lust, you're trying to fulfill something within you that satisfies you and gratifies you on a level that really is not going to be able to sustain you for a long period of time. So, and, you know, there's a saying out there that says love is blind. Well, I don't believe that. I don't subscribe to that. I believe lust is blind, but I believe love, true love, actually the love that we should have for one another, allows you to see beyond what you see in the moment. It gives you vision about that person and your relationship for the future, not only just sight for the present moment. So I found I picked that first person based upon what my flesh wanted as opposed to what I knew my spirit and my soul needed.
Yeah. And so for me, growing up in a Christian home where my mother was married to the pastor, and you know, we all know that whole scenario, right? So, you know, we were taught it's better to marry than to burn.
Yeah.
But no one ever taught us that what it is to like really find that person.
Yeah.
And so we got married just because in the eyes of everybody, it was the proper thing to do.
Yeah.
But that was not my soulmate.
That's good.
That was not my soulmate. There was no other connection than lust.
Than lust.
Lust.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So let me also add too that when I picked that person who was the wrong person for me, I'm so glad, first of all, that the person that I have now is the woman of God, that is the person who is the joy and the jewel of my life, who has caused my life to grow by leaps and bounds. But let me go back to when I picked that first person, I picked them based on lust, like I said. But that also identified that I didn't know my value.
Yeah.
I didn't understand my worth. And when you understand your value and your worth, you will either, if you don't understand it, you will give yourself away freely or you'll sell yourself cheap.
Yeah.
And when you know your value, then you'll start understanding there's a difference between picking a person based on lust or love.
That's good. That's a really good point. And not only that, I was young. We were both, he and I was very young.
Yes.
Very young, very inexperienced. And, you know, for me, it was like I had to do the right thing. Why? Because first of all, I became pregnant.
Yeah. Oh, this is transparent.
So this is being very transparent. I became pregnant. And because of that pregnancy, growing up in our Christian home, I always say that I grew up in a house of faith that was built on fear. What other people would think, what other people would say, how it would look in our community. But there were no foundations on teaching me myself and self-awareness. And I knew all the roles of a wife, right? Because my mom lived that before me. She actually was the epitome of what a wife would look like, right?
Yeah.
So I knew what a wife would look like, but I was not ready, and neither was he. Because really, we got married, like I think I just turned 20. We were just children, getting married. So there was no foundation of who I was.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
And when we don't know who we are, then we struggle. Because how can I introduce myself to you and tell you who I am and what I need if I don't know who I am?
Yes.
And that is a major, major problem. We talked about that in some of our teaching. We've helped couples with that, with some of that counseling. You have to know you.
You gotta
in
know
order
you.
to know what you need to satisfy you. If you don't know you, you'll never know what you need to satisfy you. Because how can I tell you what I need if I don't know what I need?
Yeah. So that was good. So that is the end. We just let you in on just things that are deep inside of us. So, we're talking about these things and like we're in our mid 60s now. So we're talking about things that was like 40 years ago. That's truth and reality. And, growing up in our faith, those are the things, you keep what's in the house, and you never share it out of what, shame or guilt. Like you just didn't want people to know that. But, right now we're like transparency.
That's
you
right.
have to be transparent. You got to know where someone comes from. I'm like a firm believer that if you've never had a baby, you don't know what it feels like. You can't tell me nothing about giving birth.
Okay.
That's just my
right.
belief. That's just how I believe. If you've given birth and you've experienced it, whether your baby was, whatever process, then I'm like, okay, you know what it feels like to be pregnant. Because if you've never been pregnant, you don't know what it feels like internally to be pregnant, even though every pregnancy is different. So I'm just a believer. That's my opinion.
That's right.
And I'm entitled to my opinion.
Point of view.
That's my point of view. But experience matters to me.
Yeah. And as you said that, I thought about it. The same things that have happened 30, 40, 50 years ago are relevant today. That's why the teaching is here today, to help somebody that's going to understand that maybe I did not know my value, so I gave myself away freely.
Oh, I did.
Maybe I didn't understand my worth, so I gave myself away cheaply.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't understand all these things, but if you listen to the voices of wisdom, there are people that have been through what you're about to go through or what you're going through. That's why this is relevant for the moment. There's somebody out there hurting. Somebody needs this message. They need transparency. They need to hear real people. They need to hear people that's not trying to sugarcoat it and paint the picture that everybody is perfect, because we're not perfect.
We're not.
And none of us are perfect.
No.
And we're all just trying to get better.
Yes.
So these words are nuggets that's going to help somebody.
That's going to help someone. We are free from the bondage that we both have been married before.
That's right.
And we have shared that. I mean, those clients that know us and we have been in session with, we share our testimonies on a need-be basis, right? So this is important. All right, so what's the second thing that hardly anybody knows about Mike and Carol?
Yeah, let's tell them. The second thing is that prior to us getting married, we spent a whole year ourselves.
A whole year.
A whole year. A whole 365 days ourselves.
2 weeks before our wedding day.
Right. Being poured into, being counseled, being coached. We spent that time. We invested that time.
Yeah.
Because I believe there's people only appreciate and grow from what they invest in.
Yes.
And we were willing to make the investment because we knew the investment was going to set the foundation that would become the launching pad for our life and our marriage. Yeah. So if I loved her, I was willing to spend time to invest in this process, because this process would turn on the lights
Yeah.
on every area that I needed
Everything.
to be turned on, and those lights really helped me to see what I needed to see.
What I love is that in the beginning, because we come from faith, faith, and we were always taught, we just pray about it. You pray about it. You
Yeah.
pray about it, and that's good because we're gonna pray about it, but we still have to get practical applications and
Yeah.
practical understanding because it's called life. And
What
life
happens when you get up off your knees from praying and
you
gotta
still got to live
it?
it. You
gotta live
still
it.
have to live this thing. So when we entered into in the beginning, I was like, nope, nope, nope. I remember sitting there, and because now how we ended up there first is because of the traumatic experiences that we both encountered in prior relationships.
Yes.
Made us have to do counseling.
Yes.
So the
yes.
counseling came because it was like necessary because of our traumatic encounters, right? And I was not for it because we don't do that.
Yeah.
But it was the most amazing journey. It was the best thing. I ended up loving it so much because it gave us so much clarity. And every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, no one else knew it, but every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, we was right on time, right there in our session. And like Mike said, for a whole year, and we ended 2 weeks before we got married, but that laid such a foundation.
Yes.
We had to learn us. Because when you come from a whole lot of traumatic experiences and you're talking about now connecting to someone else, and I have my drama, he had his drama,
Yes.
and this is where we learned self-awareness. We learned so much about ourselves, what we could handle, what if things do show up, what do they look like. We learned so much that it was the most amazing experience. And again, we didn't talk about it because that wasn't, you're talking about 20, we were married 27 years.
Yeah.
So you're talking about all those years ago. That's not what we did.
That's right.
People, it was like taboo
Yes.
to sit in counseling or anything. But it was the greatest gift that I gave to me and we gave to each other.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that was a long time. That we had, I will forever ever love those moments with Dr. Head.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that journey because that journey, allowed me to unpack some things. And sometimes we don't know how many layers of unpacking we have to go through to actually
Yes.
get back to the place where the seed of the pain was actually implanted.
Yeah.
And because that seed was planted there, and this is trauma.
Trauma.
Trauma is an automatic negative experience, experience that we've been through in the past that now holds up and ties up our future from being successful because we're still tied to the trauma when we're trying to move on. But that whole experience, and sometimes, everybody goes through something in life.
Everybody.
And we all have baggage. We all have things that we carry, but that's where that trauma and that baggage came into play. And I believe that whole experience of that whole year helped us, first of all, to know ourselves.
That's what we had to learn ourselves.
We had to learn ourselves. We had to, first of all, learn ourselves because you can't change what you don't know.
That's right.
And if you can't
I like
see it,
that.
you can't change it.
You can't
And if
change
you
it.
don't know it's there, it's like chasing a ghost that you can never catch up to. So we had to, first of all, know ourselves.
Yeah.
But in knowing ourselves, it took us submitting to somebody that could teach us and
Teach
show
us.
us
Yeah.
and point out things
Yeah.
without us getting to the point of rejecting them or repelling
Yeah.
them and not receiving them. We had to be teachable.
We had to be teachable.
teachable.
And that's the hardest thing is self-awareness.
Yes.
Because before spending a year in counseling, before I was looking back at all the things, he did this, prior, relationships before Mike, because we all had relationships
Yes.
before each other.
That's the baggage.
So I was always saying what that person didn't do. All these things I found in them. And when I had to look at myself, I had to suddenly start being aware of, wait a minute, what did I bring? What didn't I do right? What didn't go right? And that's why we're so big on self-awareness. We're so big on, when we work with a couple, of identifying your why. Because everyone has a why. It's that thing that make you do what you do, your reasoning behind doing what you do. And that's what, being in counseling for a year, it really helped identify things that we both was internally dealing with, that we didn't even have words.
Yeah.
They didn't even have words. They was just a whole lot of emotions and a whole lot of feelings and all these things that showed up.
Yeah.
So it was self-awareness is powerful.
Self-awareness is really powerful, like you said. These are things, and this is why you have to become self-aware, because these things have been downloaded into our belief system somewhere along life. It could have been early childhood, it could have been through relationships, it could have been through, but that baggage collects baggage. And it's almost like you have a suitcase, then you have a backpack, and you got to unpack the backpack before you unpack the suitcase.
Yes.
And that baggage has baggage, and we want to just sweep it under the rug a lot of times and say, I'm okay, there's nothing wrong. And that has been a problem even in a lot of cultures. The reason why they won't reach out to seek help, because they want to be able to say, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm good, when in fact
you're not.
You're not. And then it shows up when you come into a relationship with another person, and you don't understand your why.
You don't understand your why. Oh, because I remember my stuff showing up. So that's why when I give a message like, look at yourself,
that's right.
I mean that.
That's coming from a real place.
That's a real place. And when I looked at me, it was ugly. I remember laying on my face, crying and crying, when all this stuff like, oh my God, this me? But it's real. But when I found out who I was able to then verbalize to him all of the things that I was dealing with internally, so that he could know how to handle me. And even some of my crazy, because when you've been through a lot, your crazy look real crazy.
Yes, yes.
And that crazy look real, and it's almost could be crazy enough to make him back up, to make him run, because he doesn't understand, and you can't put words to what you're feeling. And so the way he loved me to life was priceless. And this is why we are so big on, when we work with couples, it's just the little things, but that is important. He loved me to life. I always say the greatest part of this man that I love the most is his arms, because in his arms is where I got my healing. So when you hear me say that how she shows up, if she shows up a little crazy, if she shows up a little off, and she shows up in kind of ways, and it makes your head want to spin like, is she crazy? Because I know in the beginning he thought like, this girl crazy. I love her, she fine and all that, but something else was wrong. And he didn't treat me like that because he understood that there was a power in him being that man. And when he began to love me to life, and then I was able to verbalize to him what was going on and what I needed most. And my crazy was showing up crazy. It might have showed up nitpicking, it might have showed up in little agitated ways, little things like that. It might have showed up. I might have been hollering that day, right? But what I realized is that there was something else going on, and I needed something that only he could give, because he chose me.
Yeah.
And what I needed was to be held and to be loved. And when I tell guys that, they look sometime and they be like, what do you mean? Because she ain't trying to be loved. She all Miss Independent. She all this. I'm like, yep, don't look at what you see. Look behind what you see. Because when you look behind what you see what's really inside. And that's the woman, that's the little girl, that's the little boy, that's the person that needs to be healed.
Yeah, that is so good that you said that, because it definitely ties right back to what I said in the beginning. The first relationship I chose for the wrong reasons, and I chose for fleshly reasons based on lust. But what I saw in you was I saw something I needed for my spirit and for my soul. And I also recognized that we all come with baggage. I
Yes.
knew I had trauma. I
Oh
knew
my
you had trauma.
God, yes.
And I also knew that anything good is worth fighting for.
Oh yeah.
I knew that anything worth having was worth putting forth the effort and
that was
putting
it.
forth the energy.
Yeah.
And too many times we've walked away from the people that may be the very person that we need in our life just because we didn't understand that I got to go beyond being selfish and reach out and be selfless.
Selfless.
And there was something inside of me that I needed to give to you, but there was also something that you had inside of you that you needed to give to me.
Yes.
So it was an exchange.
You gotta know.
It was an exchange, but you have to know and you have to pick based upon this is not just a temporary, momentary experience and a quick pick and a fleshly pick. It's a pick that is it's coming from what I need down in my spirit and the soulmate that I'm supposed to connect to. And longevity, I talked about vision as opposed to sight. I'm looking into my mate and saying, is this the person that I can see from a visionary standpoint that in 10, 15, 20 years we can grow together?
Yes.
So I might have to deal with some of the things that we have to push aside right now. Some of
Dust
the
off a little bit.
dust off stuff, some of the stuff that we've been through, some of the stuff that life has taught us, and maybe life teaches us some things, how to be cold, how to be hard, how to be sharp-tongued, some of those things, but that may not be everybody's experience.
Right.
But life has taught some people something that they have to get rid of.
Yeah.
And other people may have to pursue and persevere and understand that if I can just help this person to grow and push past some of that stuff, dust some of that stuff off of them, we're going to have a great relationship.
That's why, look, that's why the Bible talks about how the husband ought to love the wife.
Yeah.
And because, I always said, whew, I'm glad that wasn't
I'm glad
the
you
command.
brought that up.
That wasn't a command for, for the wife, but a husband to love her, right? Because there is something so selfless and loving her to life that if you as a man just tapped in to all of those things, put aside all the things that you might be looking at, because some of us are married. We see couples, every week, every day. Now, some of them are married and you're still trying to figure out, the crazy in her. And then sometimes you're so busy looking at the crazy that you're missing her.
Yeah.
You're missing what's really going on.
That's right.
And that you have the power to love her and to nurture her into life. And then 1 Peter 3:7 says, then you got to dwell with them according to knowledge. So it is your responsibility as a man to learn her, to know who you are connecting to. Oh, that's the word. See, that's what we talked about from the beginning. We connected, and you connected and didn't realize what your position as a husband really was going to entail, or what my position as a wife was going to entail. But oh my gracious, did we not learn?
Yeah, so we did learn, we learned.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up because the position of a man is a powerful position.
Yes.
But if you don't know how much power comes with that position, you will be out of position.
Yes.
You'll be out of pocket as it pertains to how you are to lead and how you are to govern your house and how you are to come into relationship with your wife. Because I'm also reminded of Proverbs 18, where it said that he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Now, watch this, because I wrote something the other day. How can the favor be overshadowed with the challenges or the heartache or the pain or the trauma that I feel like that person may bring to me? If I go back to the root of it all, the original thing is that he who finds a wife obtains favor. Okay, I'm only going to get my favor if I understand that I have found my wife. But watch this. It did not say that the wife was going to come all the time perfectly packaged, that she was going to come, as that person that didn't need to be dusted off. And I need to understand that I may be willing to give up on somebody that has favor underneath of what I see just because I can't see it because I'm out of position. The position of a man is to be a visionary. And some things he can't see. That's why he has to be selfless.
Selfless.
That's why I can't choose with lust. I have to choose with love.
And you know, that's good. So that's a good point for men. Before you decide to take on a wife, make sure you are in a position that you are ready. To be selfless. Because becoming that husband,
yeah, that's a great responsibility.
that's a responsibility, because some of us women, we got some, you know, whole lot of trauma, a lot of baggage. Not saying that the husbands don't, but there's a command.
Yeah, we've got our trauma too.
Yes, but there's a command that rests on the husband to love me, love my crazy. And listen, the way he loved me to life was healing and changed everything. So when we are working with couples, we are working with couples from experience.
Yes.
Our past traumas taught us what could not, did not work in marriages and relationships, and how we ought to be focused and focus our attention in a different way, because beauty can fade.
Yes.
Beauty can fade,
Yes.
Lord. Beauty can fade. Everything can go south. You know, when you get old, everything shifts. So everything can change. But it's that thing on the inside. It's that core, that knower. You know that you know that you know. You know, I remember having this conversation, and me and God in the spirit just talking, because in the beginning I was ready to run.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, you know, I was running because he didn't fit in what I thought was who was me, right? And so that's because I didn't know who I was. And I remember I was about to run, and I had an encounter, and you know what the question came to me and said? The question was, you chose your way. Everybody that you've been in relationship with was your choice. Now try it my way, my choice.
Wow, that's good.
I said, well, I think I failed all the other times, so let me just try it your way. The best decision I ever made.
Speaking of best decisions, you loved me through my damage, through my pain, through my baggage.
Sometimes
through my trauma.
sometimes we got to do that.
Yeah, and this is a word even for men, that sometimes we can be, you know, so hardcore that we fail to allow our wives, the person that is there to love us through what we're going through, and don't realize that we need to open up and be vulnerable enough to let them and allow them to love us, because we have baggage, damage, trauma covered up, and we don't want to uncover it because it doesn't feel good. It feels like almost a sense of weakness, but really it's a sense of strength. If I uncover my vulnerability and give it to you,
let us in.
You can speak to it. And she has spoken to the pain points in my life and the damage that was caused in that first relationship. If she didn't press in, pursue, overtake, I would be a damaged person in the state that I'm in, but I'm not. I'm not damaged because she was able to step in, because I was truly, truly tore up from the floor up and didn't know it.
Yeah.
And I thought I was okay, like a lot of people and a lot of men do, but I needed to let you in.
Yeah.
I needed to let you in.
Yep. And that's so true. And that's why women, you know, a lot of times we don't pay attention to the fact that men need us just as much as we need them, because there might be seasons and times in your life, in the life of your marriage, and that he may be going through, and he needs his wife to be that nurturer. And a lot of times we get that all jacked up, and we miss that seasons come and seasons go. He might be in a season where everything in his life seems to be like turned upside down. And you have to be the one to be able to look past and step in, and to be that support, to be that comfort, to be that strength. And that's a powerful position, because, you know, I often preach and tell women this, that there is so much power in a woman. You got the power to make him, or you got the power to break him. And that's a choice.
Yes.
You could choose whichever way you want. But I'm telling you that once you know the power of your position, or you become unstoppable.
Yeah. And that's what I feel like great relationships are unstoppable. Because
Unstoppable.
anytime there's two that come together, two are better than one.
Two are better than one.
I believe great relationships are unstoppable.
Yes.
There is nothing that can't be achieved, but you have to be willing to know yourself.
You
have
gotta
to be
know.
willing to let that other person
have
in.
to.
You have to be willing to be vulnerable.
You have
You
to.
have to be transparent. And you have to be able to be selfless.
Ooh, that is good. That's how you build emotional intimacy.
Yes.
So what's the third thing? The third thing that we would say that hardly anybody know, except for people, we teach this a lot. But this is one of the most important things. But everything came about in our teachings because of our experiences. So our third thing we're going to let you in on is we built our marriage on intentionality.
Yes.
So what do I mean by that? Well, because when we were in the dating stages and in the beginning stages and we were about to get married, we got a word. God gave us a word because we did Bible study together every single day. And the word that was given to us is how you began, is how you continue. And I remember how it came. You were taking me to work, and we were riding through the part of the county. It's called Windsor Mill, and we were riding through Windsor Mill on my way to work. And when we were studying, and that word hit us hard, that how you began today, you make sure you keep this up. So we made sure that has been a foundation for us, is to live in intentionality. So we live that every day. Every day intentionality is different because that means that I'm not going to get up and I'm not going to make my coffee and not make sure he has coffee or tea. Every day we are putting each other first. Every day we make sure whatever we do that we never forget the vows, we never forget each other, we never forget that we have to do things to connect. We make sure every single day and every night before we go to bed that we are intentionally connected. Now we spend 98% of our time together, hear me, during the course of a day. Now that doesn't mean that everybody can do that. It's just that that's the way we were called. That's the way, and if anyone knows us, you see us the same. We've been the same like we've been from day one because that was the mandate that was placed upon us. So we make sure that we connect,
Yes.
that we're emotionally, our emotional intimacy, that our love bank, all of that is filled. But that doesn't mean that, we're not trying to say that, okay, we don't have any arguments. We call them hiccups.
Yep,
we don't have the hiccups or anything, but we made an intentional decision when we were coming together that the two will become one. And we make sure we live in our oneness. And some folk may look at that and like, are they really like that? Anybody that knows us will say they've been like that from the beginning. And people don't understand is because that's the mandate that we live under, but that's the strong point that we live with.
Yeah, that is so true. And I just want to jump in right there because everybody's going to have disagreements. Everybody's going to have ups and downs, pitfalls. Everybody's going to hit hurdles where we're just not going to all think the same and act the same. Because if I wanted to, never have a disagreement, I would have married myself as opposed to marrying the love of my life. But we are two people with two individual thoughts, and there's a joy in that. Because what needs to happen is, I need to allow, you to complete me, and not compete with you.
Right.
Right. So with intentionality, what I'm able to do is understand that you're here for my good, not here for, to deconstruct me and tear me down.
Right.
So I'm intentional, and how intentionality comes in is because every day I understand that. I understand that what I put into you, actually causes me to maximize a life and a lifestyle that keeps me fulfilled, right? So I'm intentional about thinking about you. I'm intentional about making you a priority. I'm intentional about putting you first. And I like what you said, even in practicality. If I'm making a cup of coffee, I want to make you a cup of coffee. I'm not going to cook something and not cook something for you.
Oh my gracious, no.
But we've seen these couples and seen couples that have dealt with that with no intentionality.
Just so
and
independent.
it is the perfect storm and recipe for your relationship to fail, because whatever you don't put time into, it will start to decrease. And there's a saying that, you know, that we've said for years: whatever you don't celebrate will exit your life. And that means you have to put intentionality in it.
Yeah.
I just can't assume that we'll go on a date one day, 1 week. I have to make sure that date night is in place. Because like you said,
week.
We were given the word. How we began a thing in our relationship is how we must continue.
Yes.
So we're big, and I'm big on intentionality. I'm big on empowering men to be intentional.
Yeah.
I'm big on, because it's so easy in the course of life that so much happens. You know the saying, life be lifing. It's so much happening. People have work, people have kids, lives are busy. And at the end of the day, you don't want to put your relationship on the back burner and think that it's going to be sustainable or think it's going to be maintained. You have to make it a priority. And as a matter of fact, your relationship is going to make you successful in all the other areas in your life.
And all the other areas. Yes.
So intentionality is big with
us.
That's
the truth.
And these are things you may not have known about us, but this is important.
This is
intentionality.
So when people, we always coordinate every day. That's intentional. We always put each other first. That's intentional. We make sure we love on each other daily. That's intentional, because we know each other's love language. We call them love expressions. We know what they are, and we make sure that we are both doing that. So it's not he's doing his thing and I'm doing. It's like daily. It's like every day. It has to be an intentional thought that daily I'm going to make sure that that he's first. He's going to make sure that I'm first, and everybody else falls behind that. So it is important that we do this. This is what makes us who we are. So when we are teaching, empowering, and we are educating our couples, because that's what we do, it comes from a place of knowledge and experience with wisdom. And this is who we are. It's behind the scenes.
Yeah, behind the scenes.